Hello and welcome to digi8.com. In this video, we are going to cover the topic on self-control. Now let's start with what is self-control. Also known as a prohibitive control or self-control, it's one's capability to manage thoughts, feelings and conduct against urges and desires. People who have very little self-control are generally impetuous, wordless, unimaginative, inconsiderate towards others and are risk takers. Control is generally defined by psychologists as a capability to manage conduct to steer clear of urges and attain goals, the capability to fight impulses or conduct and postpone satisfaction, and finally, it's an exhaustible and finite resource. Moving on to the Marshmallow Test. Mischel, a psychologist, performed a test called the Marshmallow Test in the initial years of the 1970s. Children were left with a plate of marshmallows in a room. They were promised that they would be compensated if 2 marshmallows later. Mischel later observed that these kids demonstrated many good life results. Compared to children who could not postpone their satisfaction in their test, children who could refrain had superior grades and lesser behavioral issues. Moving on to the benefits of self-control. To sustain wholesome conduct, self-control is vital. According to researchers, there are many probable influences of self-control on one's well-being and health. According to a study, adults with more self-control have less periodontal disease, hindrance of airflow, infections that are transmitted sexually, cannabis, tobacco, alcohol or other substance dependence, more inflammation, abnormalities that are metabolic by nature. Moving on to tips for self-control. First, keep away from urges. This proves to be a successful way to reap the maximum results from one's self-control. If urges are kept away from, one's self-control need not be utilized entirely unless required. Next, plan for the future. Circumstances that might hinder one's determination must be considered. According to research, planning for the future boosts willpower. This is true even in circumstances where people have gone through the consequences of the exhaustion of ego. Next, practice implementing self-control. Control might reduce temporarily, but implementing self-control regularly in one's conduct can boost willpower in the long run. Self-control must be considered a muscle. However, in the long run, when hard work is maintained, muscles become stronger. Next, concentrate on one goal at once. Establishing multiple goals at a time can result in unsuccessful outcomes. Self-control can reduce in areas where willpower diminishes in one. One goal must be concentrated on at a time with all of one's energy for successful results. Next, meditation. Self-control can be strengthened with meditation. One can train oneself to stall their thoughts and hence manage the impulse that hinders their self-control. And finally, one must remember the outcomes. Self-control can boost one's mental and physical health and help attain goals. However, a lack of it can also hinder one's career, relationships, self-esteem, finances, education, and well-being. A successful way to manage self-control and remain enthusiastic is remembering the consequences. Moving on to the methods of self-control by Skinner's techniques. 9 classifications of the methods of self-control are studied in Science and Human Behavior by B.F. Skinner. First, physical help and restraint. Also called physical guidance or physical prompt, it is the implementation of physical touch to make a person experience the moment of a craved conduct. Next, altering the stimulus. Managing the moment for the conduct may affect the conduct as well. Examples are the addition of triggers or getting rid of distractions that trigger unwanted conduct. Next, medication. Self-control can be boosted with the help of certain drugs. Inhibitory control can be improved with the help of amphetamine and methylphenidate. They are also used to manage ADHD. Next, deprivation and satiation. The period when a reinforcer is not received by a person is known as deprivation. When a reinforcer is received by a person to the extent that the power the reinforcer is nulled is known as satiation. Depriving a person of stimulus can increase the value of reinforcement. Next, controlling conditions that are emotional by nature. Specific responses can be prompted by controlling conditions that are emotional by nature. Considering activities to be fun or work can impact the struggle to attain self-control. Next, using stimulation that is aversive. The probability of target conduct can be boosted or reduced with the help of aversive stimulation. Like the other self-management methods, a control and a controlling response exist. Aversive or punisher are the names of aversive stimuli. Next, operant conditioning. Also known as Skinnerian conditioning, operant conditioning is a procedure of punishing conduct for weakening it or reinforcing it and in turn strengthen it. Conduct being constantly reinforced and strengthened or punished and weakened gives rise to a consequence and association. Operant behavior is also the use of consequences to change conduct. Next, retribution. Setting a punishment contingent when unwanted responses are received is a part of the self-punishment of responses. More than self-control, punishment refers to compliance. It's self-control instead of an external source. An internal device must prompt a person to want to take specific actions. And finally, pretty straightforward, do something else. According to Skinner, believers of many religions and philosophies were asked to love their enemies, demonstrating this concept. Something else or something that does not sit well with one's response must be done to control oneself when enraged or filled with hate. So that's it, folks. This brings an end to the topic on self-control. These are some of the sources and links referred to for the content in the video. Thank you and see you in the next video.